For the first 1,000 years of Christianity, the rule was simple. Usury was forbidden. Not debated, not negotiated. Early Christian councils banned it outright. Thinkers like St. Basil, St. Ambrose, and later St. Thomas Aquinas spoke with one voice: charging interest on a loan was morally wrong. It was seen as taking advantage of someone else's need. But that clarity didn't survive unchanged. Economic pressure began to carve small cracks into the foundation. And those cracks became pathways that reshaped the entire financial world. Merchants in medieval Europe were the first to push the boundaries. They needed credit for long-distance trade but couldn't legally charge interest. So they engineered structures that avoided the word interest while keeping its profits. One of the most famous was the Contractum Trinius, 3 separate agreements, a loan, an insurance contract, and a profit-sharing deal. On paper, they were unrelated. But combined, they guaranteed a return almost identical to interest. It was a legal fiction, but a powerful one. Another workaround appeared through the census contract. Instead of lending money, a lender would buy an income stream from someone. In reality, it functioned just like interest payments, but the church found it harder to prohibit because it wasn't labeled as a loan. Families like the Medici pushed the boundary even further. They earned predictable returns through foreign exchange fees, charging different rates depending on location and time. Figures like Cosimo de' Medici and Lorenzo de' Medici built banking empires using methods that produced interest-like profits while avoiding the direct prohibition. It was all technicalities, but the technicalities were enough. Then came a deeper shift. Early banks in places like Renaissance Italy, and later the Bank of Amsterdam, began to function with what we would now call fractional reserve banking. They held only a portion of deposits and lent out the rest, multiplying the money supply far beyond the physical currency that existed. Credit expanded, economies grew, governments became dependent on loans. And once a society depends on credit, moral restrictions soften. The Reformation accelerated this change even more. In the 1540s, John Calvin argued that not all interest was sinful, especially when it involved business and wasn't exploitative. His views spread across Geneva, the Netherlands, and England. Soon, Protestant regions rewrote the relationship between morality and finance. By the 1600s and onward, interest was no longer something condemned, it was something regulated. Governments legalized it, banks normalized it, and what was once forbidden became the backbone of Western financial power. And from my perspective, we are watching a parallel today in parts of the Islamic finance industry. Many modern Sharia-compliant mortgages avoid using the word interest, but still mirror the structure of an interest-based loan. The payments are linked to time, the returns are guaranteed, and often no real transfer of goods occurs beyond symbolic paperwork. In substance, the mechanics resemble the very thing the system was meant to avoid. It is a process that looks remarkably similar to what unfolded in Christian Europe centuries ago. The rule stays on the books, while the practice shifts in the background. This becomes even more concerning when we look at war. Historically, interest-enabled lending allowed European states to build massive armies and fund long campaigns. Wars that would have been impossible under strict, reserve-backed money suddenly became easy to finance through debt. And we see the same thing today. Entire conflicts are funded by money created through lending. Money that quite literally did not exist hours before. This is a new meaning of blood money. The United States can expand its money supply through loans and then send billions of dollars abroad. And in my view, this is exactly how the U.S. is able to fund Israel's military operations, including actions that I believe amount to a genocide against Palestinians. A financial system based on debt creation becomes a weapon in global conflict, and this leads directly into the next chapter of the story. Because this system, built on credit creation and fractional reserves, didn't just shape Europe, it shaped the United States. It fueled economic booms, panics, and collapses. It played a deep role in the Great Depression, a crisis many blamed on the gold standard, even though the heart of the instability came from banks lending money they didn't actually hold. And abandoning the gold standard wasn't a solution. It was an expansion of the very system that caused the instability in the first place.